Welcome back to part 2 of the cell transport lectures. Today we're going to cover cell membrane properties, and basically I'm going to break it down into 4 major components. You got the phospholipid bilayer, you got the cholesterol, you got transport proteins, and then lastly you have receptor proteins and recognition carbohydrates. So let's break them all down and view each one individually. The phospholipid bilayer, just like we learned during biochemistry, a lipid is technically a fat, and it's actually made of a glycerol and 2 fatty acids. Except this phospholipid bilayer has 2 layers of lipids that are all attached and they're all arranged a specific way. So if you look, you've got layer 1 right here, layer 2 right here. All these little polar heads are all on the outside because they kind of like water things. And water's polar. And then you have these inside non-polar ends that they hate everything. That's why they're stuck in the center. So moving forward, part 2, cholesterol. It actually stabilizes those phospholipids by preventing those fatty acid tails from sticking together. So even though they tell you cholesterol is terrible, there's 2 different types. You got your good and you got your bad. The good is what is actually happening here, what's helping these phospholipids from sticking to one another. So, where are those things located? Right in here. Okay? They're going to separate those tails from bonding together. They're going to help out. Moving to number 3. We've got transport proteins. These proteins are kind of embedded inside and go across the plasma membrane or cell membrane, and you'll see them spread out. They actually have an important job to allow things to go through them or molecules to travel through them. So what am I talking about? You've got an embedded protein right here. These right here are different types of proteins and carbohydrates that you're going to see that are embedded in the cell membrane, and we're going to actually get to why those proteins and carbohydrates are important to the cell. Lastly, you have your receptor molecules and proteins. So basically embedded, just like I was saying, the proteins were embedded inside the cell membrane and going across. There are also surface proteins and surface carbohydrates, which allow for the cell to communicate and recognize different cells or chemical messages that are coming from around the body. Now, there are different types of cells for different characteristic receptors, meaning for every specific message, there's a different specific receptor embedded in the cell membrane. Think of the lock and key model. There's only one key for every lock and one lock for every key. Okay, and they don't work. So let's look at the image right here. You have your phospholipid bilayer right here. Okay, and embedded right here you have this little pinkish or orange, whatever you want to call that. You have the receptor molecule embedded in the phospholipid. All these little yellow messages are being sent directly to that specific receptor. See how they actually fit in that lock and key? Specific message being sent. And that's going to conclude today's little mini lecture on the cell receptors and the 4 components of the cell membrane. Hope this helps, and we'll look to the next one.